You're now watching Sports Bettor's Paradise on the BetRivers Network.
All right, Jimmy out along with Bruce Marshall talking college football, his best bets each and every week here on the Sports Bettor's Paradise on the BetRivers Network. And Brucey, let's get right to it. You got a 5-pack for us. Let's go to the American Conference here. Kind of a nondescript game. That's where you specialize. At Navy at home in Annapolis, 2.5-point favorites against the Pirates of East Carolina.
Yeah, that's my middle name, nondescript. I love these games. We love them, Jimmy. But a couple things here. And Navy, Aaron Taylor, they were last month doing the Air Force game on TV for CBS Sports, and he said, if this team gets bowl eligible, they might celebrate like they got to the Super Bowl here in Annapolis. And they are within touching distance. They're 4-5 right now. They get this one, they're 5-5. I mean, there was a real chance they could get bowl eligible. And from where this team started this season with the coaching change and all that, that's pretty good accomplishment. As it turns out, I mean, Newberry, he was promoted obviously from defensive coordinator, but they look a lot like they did. Certainly on offense, as they did with Coach Ken the last few years. But they've balanced things out a little bit more. They're about a 6-to-1 run-pass ratio, heavy option, of course, and they've pulled back the throttle on the option a little bit. They're still about 4-to-1 run-pass, but they are passing a little bit more effectively. They've moved to Xavier Arline. They've rotated quarterbacks throughout the season. Lavatai was in there for much, and Arline has had experience in the past. But he's been in there lately, and a very good game last week against UAB at over 100 yards rushing, 7 of 10 passing. Navy terms, that's not too bad, and they won that game pretty handily. This defense, though, is the deal. They have allowed only 13 points per game in 5 home games this season. They really swarm on defense, and this could be a problem for ECU, which has played a little better lately. I'll give Mike Houston credit. He didn't win all those games at James Madison in the last few years at East Carolina by accident, but Flynn, the quarterback, has not thrown a TD pass the last 2 weeks, under 200 yards last week, even though they got the win 2 weeks ago against Tulane and barely over 200 last week in the win they got last week at Florida Atlantic. So they're playing a little bit better, 3 straight covers, but the offense still ain't doing too much. One other note, this series, for what it's worth in recent years, has been all Navy. It was Niumatalolo, but like we said, Navy's not too much different. 4 wins and covers in a row for the Mids against East Carolina. That goes back to 7 in a row if you pull it back to 2012. So this series has been very awkward for East Carolina, and Navy's doing it right now. So I'm going to lean to the midshipmen here in Annapolis and see if they can continue this late season surge.
All right, the Middies minus 2.5 against East Carolina. Get extra value this football season with BetRivers Squares. Went up to $10,000 in bonus money. Bet $10 in same-game parlays on any game with the Squares icon to earn a square. Brought to you by our friends over at BetRivers. All right, Rich Rod doing it again, man. He's won at a bunch of different stops, including as a top assistant at Tulane and Clemson. Now he's doing it at Jacksonville State. In our preview, our Conference USA preview, we said that Jackson State, making a move up, but they've won a lot of games, at the lower level. Now they are 7-3 straight up, 7-2-1 against the spread, and they're hosting Louisiana Tech under Sonny Cumbie, who has struggled this year. -9, Jacksonville State, the Roosters at home against La Tech.
Yeah, how about that Jacksonville State? 7-3. Yeah, they won 9 games last year, and so they were ready for the step up, and they're going to need some, not eligible unless some strange things happen for bowls, but this year. But they've done extremely, extremely well. The game against South Carolina a couple of weeks ago maybe was their best effort of the season. They had the Gamecocks pinned in the second half. They were ahead of them, the other Gamecocks. And it took a long touchdown pass from Rattler to pull it out for South Carolina. And South Carolina's playing better lately, so that's a good effort from Jacksonville State. Zion Webb, their quarterback, this is a perfect Rich Rod quarterback. He's a dual threat, and that's who Rich Rod has flourished with throughout his career, quarterbacks who can do it both ways, both running and passing it. Webb has turned into a pretty good dual threat for him. But it's the other way here too, Jimmy. We've talked about it, maybe here in Paradise before, I know on our radio shows we've talked about it too. Sonny Cumbie just ain't cutting it at La Tech. And they both sides of the line of scrimmage, they are sloppy offensively. Bringing in Bachmeier from Boise State did not jumpstart this offense this season. The defense has been lax. Special teams not great. And we go back to, be careful what you wish for. If you're a place like La Tech and you've got a coach who was winning pretty consistently, like Skip Holtz, getting you to bowl games, then you have one off year off of the COVID season, and you decide it's time to make a change and bring Cumbie in here. This ain't working for La Tech, and it gets worse as it goes on here. The price is still single digits here for Jacksonville State. I'm going to give Rich Rod a shot. This is kind of a go with and a definite go against the other way for La Tech.
Yeah, Louisiana Tech is usually a solid program, at the mid-major level, and it's just been bad. And, as teams, the players do a lot of poor football IQ, make decisions, clock management at the end of halves leaves a lot to be desired. And just they after Sam Houston State couldn't win forever, they won their last two. Well, one of those wins is against Louisiana Tech. All right, let's go to Kansas and Kansas State. This one is in Lawrence, Kansas. Kansas State, a road favorite here, Bruce. 8 points over Kansas in Lawrence. Now, it's all about the quarterbacks. That's one thing. Lance Leipold has done an unbelievable job, a miraculous job in Lawrence, Kansas, taking this thing over from scratch in a Power 5 program. And, well, he lost his star quarterback, Daniels. Bean has been pretty good for a backup. And then he got knocked out very early in a Texas Tech game, and they stalled pretty good. Wasn't crazy about Leipold's clock management, and then way too rushed, leaving way too much time on the clock when that was clearly going to be his last possession of the game. This is on prime time, 7 o'clock Eastern time on FS1. Wildcats, 8-point road favorites.
Yeah, a couple things here. First things first, Kansas quarterback situation, being knocked out of the game. It looks like Daniels is not going to be able to go the rest of the season, and that really did hurt Kansas because he was excellent, and they were really flying high with him. Bean, though, as we've mentioned before, not a bad backup, plenty of experience. He's in his 6th year. He started a couple of years at North Texas, and he's played a lot with Daniels hurt at Kansas. He's very functional for them, but when he got knocked out last week, they had to go to Ballard, the third stringer, and the offense really, really slowed down then. The thought is that they're hopeful that Bean will play. He was knocked out. If he gets out of protocols this week, and they think he probably will be, he should play in this game, but they are crossing their fingers. We will see. I don't think it matters if it's Bean or Ballard. I'm looking against Kansas here. One thing that is carried over from Bill Snyder to Chris Kleiman, one of Snyder's edicts when he took over at Kansas State long ago was, first of all, I'm going to win the state. Then I'm going to worry about the rest of, the Big 12 after that. It was the Big 8 when he first got there. But once he first started to beat Kansas, he kept beating Kansas and kept beating Kansas and kept beating Kansas. And it is a regional a joke almost how this series became so one-sided. The last 4 years since Kleiman has been there, he's done the same thing. He's won and covered all 4 against Kansas, and he's usually thumped them. I'd also point out later in the season, Kansas did struggle some last year. And right now, especially with the quarterback situation, it looks like some of the same things might be happening, at least to a certain degree. They're not quite as the sharp edge offensively, certainly, as they were earlier in the season. One note about Kansas State here, or 2 notes. Will Howard, since Avery Johnson, the freshman, has been into the rotations at quarterback, it's not an every other series thing, but Kleiman's been spotting him in there. He's a good runner, but look at Howard's numbers the last few weeks. Last 4 games, 12 touchdown passes. He's on his best touchdown pass streak of his career, so he's really been hot. Last note, just in case, and we'll get to the Texas game in a minute. Texas loses this week. Kansas State, this becomes a complete logjam in the Big 12. It already is, but if you get Texas 2 losses, K-State's one of those teams with 2 losses, and there's 4 other ones going into this week. They are not out of the Big 12 title game picture by any means, and they've been playing really, really well, and they probably should have beat Texas a couple weeks ago. Series trends, I'm going to stick with the Wildcats here. Even in Lawrence, they seem to go down there. They don't mind where they'll play Kansas anywhere and beat them up, and that's what's been happening for a couple of decades now in this series.
You talk about the logjam leadership with the Big 12. Some discussions about changing the tiebreaker system in the middle of the season. That's not good. And the other
No.
thing, both of these coaches on some lists, as some jobs are opening up.
Yes.
Both of these guys at 7-3. Of course,
Yes.
Kansas State defending Big 12 champions, and in Leipold, a miracle job. Won 6 games. They're already at 7-3 this year. Another improvement. What a job both of these guys have been doing at their respective schools. All right, now we get to the hottest team, the best team against the spread in all of the NCAA this year. That's right, your favorite UNLV running Rebels. We have adjusted mid-season on these guys. Odom, I want to talk about another guy. His name is being thrown out there for some possible jobs. They are 10-1, a nation best 10-1 against the spread. All eyes on the Air Force quarterback here, Larrier, because he did not take any snaps in Hawaii, as they were 19-point favorites and lose by double digits. UNLV Air Force, tell me about the championship game implications for the conference in this one. I would have to think it's pretty important with these two in Fresno at the top of the conference. Air Force at home at Colorado Springs, just a 3-point favorite now over UNLV.
Boy, like you said, Jimmy, it has really unraveled here for Air Force, and it started the game before that against Army in Denver when nothing went right either. I mean, this is back-to-back games when they have been nearly 3 TD favorites, Jimmy, and they've lost both those games outright by double-digit margins, by 20 and 14. I do this calculation, I call it against the spread usually, and I look at a 2-game average. This is one of the worst 2-game averages I can ever remember for Air Force, for any team, and especially Air Force, which had been such a good overachiever for so long. But you can trace this back to Larrier. There's a very fine line. We've talked about this a lot, Jimmy, before. Very fine line, these teams that run the option, like Air Force. And you pull one cog out of that wheel, especially a guy like Larrier, who gave them a real dimension there with his speed. I mean, he's a Mountain West track and field star, too. And he gets to the edge. I mean, he's been gone this season, and this big play offense really worked with him, even though it's on the ground. Without him, they don't have that. And even if he's in there, this leg injury has slowed him down considerably. He wasn't the same guy when he's in there against Army either. So I'm not sure he's going to get back to 100% until they maybe get to a bowl. And by the way, there are plenty of Mountain West title implications here. These two, Fresno and San Jose, roaring up on the outside here. And San Jose plays UNLV next week, so it's all coming down, and they could all be in the mix, and even for hosting the championship game. I'm glad you mentioned Barry Odom. His name is showing up on many lists right now, and, along with his offensive coordinator, Brennan Marion. Remember that name, Brennan Marion. This is one of the hottest commodities now in college football as far as coordinators on their way up. Look what he's doing with this go-go UNLV offense and the true freshman quarterback Maeva. There's talk around now you mentioned Odom getting on some of these lists, bringing Marion with him, and we know the way it is in the age of nil and the portal and all that, bringing this quarterback Jaden Maeva with you. I'd hate to see them all leave UNLV at once, but Maeva is the real deal. Look what he's been doing since he came in there for Brumfield at the Vanderbilt game, and like you said, this point spread mark has been fantastic this season. Only one point spread loss, that Colorado State game, a game UNLV won. I think they go into Colorado Springs and win this thing outright, Jimmy. They're good. It's time we buy into these guys, and we've talked about them this year in Air Force. It's a sell right now on the Falcons, unfortunately. UNLV all the way.
That's a good point that you made about Maeva being a true freshman, because you don't perform like he's you watch him, you think it's his 35th start in college football. And that's a reflection of coaching. Some good coaching. It's a good point about the hotshot offensive coordinator in Las Vegas. All right, finally, Bruce, your 5th pick of the week. Go to the Big 12 in Iowa State and Texas. So Texas doing it again, kind of with the backup quarterback, living dangerously. Kleiman decides to go for it for the whole shebang at the 4-yard line. They hold him as they overcome some turnovers that set up some short touchdown opportunities and a big comeback for Kansas State in Austin. Then last week, they go down to the wire against TCU as a big favorite. But now they get their quarterback back in Ewers, but lose 1,000-yard rusher, double-digit touchdown running back for the season with a blown-out ACL. Iowa State catching 7.5 at home at night in Ames.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan Brooks was like really a star for them this year running the football. What a dimension he gave them with him out. I mean, I can't help to have him out of there. But Jimmy, you look at Texas here lately, and, they remind me of like a front-running horse. And down the stretch, maybe think the Belmont Stakes at a mile and a half, and it's hard to hang on the whole way. Man, they are. Look at what's happening to them late in all these games. TCU is 20 back, almost got them last week. 2 weeks ago, K-State was 21 down, almost got them in that game. In fact, had forced overtime in that game. Probably should have won. Almost blew a big lead, double-digit lead against Houston before that. Almost blew that as well. They haven't been covering these games either. This team is on the ropes right now, Jimmy, and all these games are turning into real scraps for them. And this is a very difficult test at Ames. What Matt Campbell has done again this year is remarkable. And here's another guy who should be on a short list for some of these other jobs, though he seems pretty content there in Ames. But they've turned things around. It took a while for Rocco Beck, the freshman. We've talked about Iowa State before this season. Thrown in there in the deep end at the start when Hunter Deckers had to step away from the team. It took Beck to, about a month and a half, but he's been very steady since, and they are running the football. The defense is there. John Heacock, the coordinator. This is the best defense probably in the Big 12. And, oh, by the way, this series has been very, very difficult for Texas in recent years. They barely survived that game last year by 3, and Austin did not cover that. Campbell has covered several in a row in this series. It's always been tough. He beat Texas by 23 points a couple of years ago, 30-7 in Sark's first go around the track with the Longhorns. Iowa State is very live this week, Jimmy. And hey, who doesn't love some chaos? That would create total chaos in the Big 12. Iowa State is capable. Texas is on the ropes here. No Brooks this week. It's Iowa State for me.
All right, that's your primetime game, 8 o'clock Eastern on Fox. Texas going to Ames, Iowa. Yes, I've had plenty of those horses coming down the stretch trying to hold on. Where's the wire? Get to him. When I get my horse, I'm going to name him Nondescript Marshall. For Bruce Nondescript Marshall, I'm Jimmy Yott here on the Sports Bettor's Paradise each and every week on the BetRivers Network.